In this video, we're going to do an informal Jim Cramer style overview about the companies to put on our watch list as China's market goes through an intense shakeout phase following their historic rally. Shout out to NordPass for sponsoring our research, more on them later. After a string of powerful stimulus announcements, investors have been looking for more concrete action from policymakers before committing more capital to China as an asset class. China had staged a record-breaking rally earlier in September 2024, but as has often been the case, after the rally comes an intensive period of choppiness that awaits the next big development. I'm going to talk about the 5 companies at a super high level that I think have a good long-term future once stimulus policies are clearly put in place. Now, every company needs a catalyst to move higher, and I'll talk about their key drivers. Just as a reminder, I like all the companies I'm about to talk about in this video, but I don't yet own all of them, and I'm not saying to buy them at today's price. I am saying that I like their long-term direction based on their business model and outlook, but we have to snipe the entry. All the specific strategies around the stocks themselves are discussed on my Substack, so let's get started. The first company that I think is a clear beneficiary to China doing more monetary and fiscal stimulus is BYD, H shares ticker 1211, which is China's leading EV manufacturer. BYD is the largest EV player in China with an estimated 34% market share. We can see in this chart here that its market share is almost the size of its next largest 5 competitors combined. This essentially means that when the EV market in China heats up, BYD has the greatest scale and resources to take advantage of any consumer recovery. One other possible benefit is that BYD gets government subsidies, and it's possible that these subsidies could possibly increase upon more stimulus. Let's take a look at some of their cars. This sedan here looks like a Tesla, and this SUV looks like a massive Range Rover. Now, I have to say, they do have really nice design, and if I lived in China, that kind of car looks very buyable to me, very nice appeal. Now, BYD is also a large-scale, profitable EV manufacturer, and typically China EV manufacturers that are publicly traded are still running red on an operating basis. BYD may not have the 3 to 4x potential that NIO, Xiaopeng, Li Auto has, but it's safer and experiences less volatility. Now, these are China names, so volatility is massive. Everything I'm saying is relatively speaking. The company grows revenues in the mid-teens, so not as fast as the smaller players, but because it's profitable, its stock experiences less wild swings compared to other smaller EVs. The biggest risks to the company include margin contraction if there is a EV pricing war, or if the company faces larger than existing hurdles to expand internationally. In Europe, for instance, the tariff situation is something that does need to be watched out for. The second company that I think has a strong long-term outlook is e-commerce king Pinduoduo, PDD. PDD would benefit most from China's consumer spending and retail sales recovering. Its domestic e-commerce platform is very popular with consumers from all Chinese cities, but particularly popular with Tier 3 budget-conscious consumers. Its crown jewel Temu shopping app also has significant promise as it is highly popular with consumers in the US and Europe. Now, I think Temu is a huge hit with consumers. That being said, the risks are the following. Temu has high growth expectations. Recently, daily active users have seen roughly 15–20% decline this summer year over year. Because 2023 was such a large year of growth for Temu's user base, it makes comparisons much more difficult this year. Sales growth compared to 2023 is also definitely slowing down. In 2023, Temu sales growth, their run rate was about 100%. Or more in some quarters. This year, that percentage is closer to 35 to 37%. And tariffs could compound these risks. Now, one of the clever ways to know whether Temu has a strong outlook is if it spends heavily on Meta as an advertiser. If Meta says that ad revenue from China is strong, that is indirectly suggesting that Pinduoduo's Temu has a robust outlook as well. Now, before we talk about the final 3, I want to thank our video partner for supporting our research. Now, these days, securing my personal data and passwords is a big priority because of the insane amount of spam messages that I get. I get spam messages in my email inboxes, SMS messages, and even on WhatsApp. These spam messages are all intended to collect personal information that could be sold on the dark web or be used by sophisticated scammers to impersonate us to get into our bank accounts. Now, there have been a larger and larger number of people who are being targeted by scammers that have been milked out of their life savings. See this image below. Because of all the information that's out there on the internet, I've been using NordPass as my security password manager to make sure that my passwords, credit card details, details and other sensitive information isn't compromised. With phishing and sophisticated scamming on the rise, I want to make sure that my info is protected from data leaks and financial loss. Now I don't have to spend time thinking about data leaks, lost passwords, or password resets. This is because NordPass flags breaches and highlights personal data that is circulating the dark web, helping you know if anything needs to be followed up with. If you're watching this and want to avoid being in the crosshairs of scammers, you can get a free 3-month trial of NordPass Business. No credit card is required. Use the code LarryChung at nordpass.com/LarryChung. The link is also in the description. All right, now back to the video. Up next is Futu Holdings, which is Hong Kong's largest digital brokerage company for stock market investing and wealth management. The company is rapidly expanding to Singapore and Japan as it looks to become a bigger brokerage in the Asia-Pacific region. The main metrics that I think investors look for are new customer registrations, new assets deposited, and their trading volume. This essentially means that the market environment in Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index will be a large driver of Futu's future growth. If China releases stimulus that can stabilize the Hang Seng, retail investor confidence will come back and trading volumes on Futu will increase. China's markets are very sensitive to stimulus announcements, so Futu is one of those names that could stay in a very choppy range for a bit and then suddenly and violently soar once any stimulus announcement comes out. Gotta know the rhythm behind each name. Up next, we have Xiaomi. And Xiaomi is traded in the Hang Seng Index, but it trades over the counter in US markets. Now, I had some fun researching this because it turns out that Xiaomi's largest business segment is their smartphone division. And from a market share standpoint, they're constantly wrestling for the number 2 or number 3 spot in the world at roughly 15% market share in terms of global sales volume. Their next largest segments are the Internet of Things, or IoT segments, and they recently released their new EV car, the Xiaomi SU7. Xiaomi generated 6.2 billion yuan in revenue from its EV business after launching its first EV car in late March. Over time, I do expect Xiaomi to become a more diversified tech company that is gaining momentum in China's consumer electronics market. The key risk for Xiaomi, then, is China's consumer spending environment. For instance, if we see direct fiscal stimulus that helps consumers feel more confident about the job outlook, Xiaomi is a direct beneficiary. The last company that I'll talk about is New Oriental, ticker EDU, China's largest educational services provider for after-school tutoring and overseas study abroad consulting. Education continues to be embedded in Chinese culture as a top priority among families to have their children do better in school and their post-graduation studies. Being the largest provider of educational services in China, New Oriental is positioned to do just that. Their CEO, Yumin Hong, is an incredible leader, and New Oriental is a founder-CEO-led company. Much of my belief in his company comes down to the way that he's helped it navigate the 2021 tutoring ban in China, which nearly wiped out the entire industry with only a few survivors, and EDU being one of the more prominent ones. The risks, of course, are that Chinese consumers have to feel reasonably confident about spending discretionary income for New Oriental to have a continued strong outlook. For this reason, it isn't really monetary stimulus that moves EDU, in my opinion, but more so fiscal stimulus that directly impacts family income and discretionary spending. If China can pass their plan to get families with 2 or more children a monthly allowance of 800 renminbi, I can safely say that a portion of that will go towards after-school tutoring, making New Oriental a direct beneficiary. Now, the massive question that I'm sure every China market watcher or shareholder wants to know is China going to head higher? And look, this is a complicated question, but the short answer is that in the long term is yes. I think China heads higher. Absolutely. By how much? I think in 1 to 2 years, if stimulus measures are put in place, the Hang Seng could get to 25,000. The path to get there is extremely complicated, and nobody knows. I'm going to say I don't know. No one honestly knows the path. But there is a path, and this path heads higher. I like to tell our members that the way to think about China is very simple. Wait, 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 and then a pump will appear. The difficulty of this market is a 10 out of 10, and that's why the gains can be so large all of a sudden. It's not for everybody. We'll discuss more China updates periodically on the channel, so make sure to subscribe. In my Substack, if you want the day-by-day playbook, I talk about such opportunities in more nuanced manners. Here on YouTube, I'm much more macro and high level. New members who join our community will get direct updates on WhatsApp from me or my assistant. I'll be on travel to Hong Kong, China over the coming month, so there are some websites I can't visit myself because of the Great Firewall. Thank you to NordPass for sponsoring my research, and guys, have a great day. I'll see you next time.